Why does your weight go up when you diet? I know this can be demotivating because you think it's fat gain, when in reality, that's just not the case. So let's say you're in a calorie deficit and your weight still goes up. I'll explain 10 reasons why, and at the end of the video, give you some practical advice as to ways to minimize error and give you my go-to tools for tracking progress. Before I explain the 10 situations why your weight went up in the first place, I first need you to understand how to lose fat. So to lose fat, you need to be in an energy deficit, and that's burning more energy than your body is consuming. Think of it as a bank account. You have a certain amount that you can spend each day. If you go over that, you'll gain fat. If you spend under that, you'll lose fat. And if you spend about the same, you'll stay the same weight. All right, now reason number one is you just had more carbs that day. So carbohydrates pull in more water. So it's about 3 to 4 grams of water for every gram of carb that you have. So if you were to do like say keto, and then you cut all your carbs, and then all of a sudden one day you had extra carbs, then your water will go up due to the carbohydrate content pulling in more water for glycogen. So say you may be so restricted with having bread and pastas and stuff, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go on to a diet, I'm gonna cut out all these. Then maybe there's sandwiches at the office and you have one sandwich, and then the next day, weight's going up. A lot of that's due to water. There's nothing inherently bad about carbohydrates. When they put the same amount of calories with the same amount of protein, with high carbohydrates and low carbohydrates, they lose the same amount of weight. And I would argue having carbohydrates to fuel your workouts may be beneficial long term. So if it works for you, take out the carbohydrates, but if it doesn't, it's fine having them. There's nothing wrong with it. All right, reason number two, you just had saltier foods. This mainly is probably in the form of processed foods or when you go out to eat for dinner. Usually if you're salting your food and you're having mainly whole foods, it's not too bad. It's usually when you're having processed foods in packets and stuff that have a lot of sodium in it. And sodium, again, holds on to more water. So you may have gone out to dinner one night, and then the next day you wake up and then your weight's up. It's due to that high carbohydrates with that high sodium levels, and that's what's holding on to more water. And that sodium potassium balance. So it's good to have some potassium in there. So sweet potatoes, bananas, all that kind of fresh fruit and veg, just to balance out your sodium. For people that are going on diets, usually what happens is they cut out all the processed foods and then they drop a lot of weight, and a lot of that has to do with sodium as well, and they may start getting headaches. So it is important that you do salt your food if you are having all whole foods, but then when you do have that food late at night, like processed foods, or if you go out to dinner, they do add a lot more calories like butter and oils and stuff like that, and a lot of salt, just to make it taste better. And because, you know, you go into a restaurant, they don't care about your calories, they only care about making the food taste good. So it's just being aware that, okay, I'm gonna have this late night dinner, it's gonna be out with my friends or family. The next day, I know my weight's gonna go up, so just relax, it's gonna be fine. The next day, you're back on track, next healthy meal. I always say that when you have one high calorie, low nutrient dense food, afterwards, next meal, make sure that that's nice and healthy. All right, reason number three is there's probably still food in your GI tract. So everyone has to eat to live, and it's important that you know that if you're having a food late at night and then you weigh in early in the morning, that food still may be in your system. So it's not fat, it's just food that's actually in your GI tract. This accounts for a little bit, not as much as water does. It's just important to know that if you finish late and then you have, say, a late night meal because you don't get home till like 9, 10 o'clock, that food's probably still getting processed in your GI tract. All right, reason number four is you weighed in late or at night. Once you weigh in later, then you may have had some water during the day or had some food in you, and then that's not a true representation of your weight. I see this a lot on the weekends when people usually sleep in and then they forget to weigh in, and then they weigh themselves like 12 o'clock instead of, 6, 7, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And then they get a different number and then they get discouraged when really it's just a different time of day. Reason number five is you weighed in on a different scale or with some clothes on. So it's important that you weigh with your scale, or if it's a different scale, that you know the difference between them. Wearing clothes obviously puts on weight as well. So that's not a true representation of your actual weight at the present moment. I see people weighing in at the gym and then weighing in at home, and it's like 3-4 hours later than when they normally would have. I know it's hard, especially if you have a partner. Like I have scales here in my house, and then I go to my missus' house and then she has different scales as well. So it's important that if you are going to weigh yourself, that you make sure that you know the difference between the scales, because it can throw you off so many times. All right, reason number 6 is you weigh in once a week. Now, this is very important to note that, say on the weekend, you went out with your friends, you had extra food, and then you weighed in on Monday and it's high as anything. But then say you weighed in on Tuesday, it was going to be just as low as if it was on, say, the Friday before you went out on the weekend. So weighing once a week, I wouldn't recommend it, because you're not seeing trends. You're only seeing like on one day of the week to the other, and the conditions are different depending on what you did on the weekend, when you wake up on the Monday. So I wouldn't recommend weighing yourself once a week unless you have a bad relationship with the scale. And then I would suggest getting help for that, or finding different ways to measure progress. Reason number 7 is alcohol. Now, this is a double-edged sword. So alcohol is diuretic. So sometimes you may drink at night, and then the next day you may be waking up a lot lighter than you were the day before due to the diuretic effect. Once you get some more water in there, then you're going to be settled. The second one with alcohol as well is it lowers your inhibitions, which means that you're going to be grabbing absolutely anything that you see on the shelves out, especially if you go out, and then that will in turn wreck your sleep. I know that if I have drinks the night before, the next day I'm just going to be ravenous with all sorts of highly processed foods. The thing with alcohol as well is it still contains calories. You're like, oh yeah, but I have, vodka, soda water, whatever. Yeah, but there's still calories in the alcohol. So 1 gram of alcohol is 7 calories. So it's important that if you are going to lower your calories, you can't have like sugar-free versions of the stuff. It's when you start getting into cocktails and then you're mixing drinks and the sugar content gets up there, and that's when you can start to really gain more weight due to obviously eating afterwards as well. Now, alcohol is a poison, so it's going to get rid of the alcohol first, and then it's going to slow down lipolysis, which is just the breakdown of fat. So once you have alcohol and then you eat, it's a recipe for disaster basically. You can mitigate it a lot by having those sugar-free versions with your alcohol, having water in between, all these kind of things. But the biggest one is just not to drink so much. All right, reason number 8 is stress. So stress of the form of work or exercise, you could be inflamed. So stress can really hold on to more water. And then once you just relax, then that water weight will go. So it's important to just get some stress mitigation. So some breathing, meditation, going for walks. It's funny, I say exercise, but like just some light exercise. If you've been pumping the weights a lot too hard, like going in there 2-3 hours a day, 6-7 days a week, doing supersets, doing drop sets, going to failure. These are the kind of things that can be stressing the body up too much. And if you're finding that you're not actually losing any weight, it could be due to you just probably doing too much. And then you maybe just need to back off a bit, and then you might see what's called this whoosh effect of your water weight. I had it the other day. It was like 3 kilos of just pure water one night gone, just due to probably lower my stress levels, had a really good night's sleep, and just backed off the training a little bit. So if you are finding you're having stressful moments in life, just take a break, take a rest, and then hopefully that water weight will just swoosh off. And reason number 9 is hormones. Especially women around their period, they'll hold on to a little bit more water. So it's important just to know if you do have irregular cycles, just to check, okay, this week, this is around my period, I'm probably going to gain a bit more weight due to water retention. So it's important just to know that. So for us men out there, we can easily track week to week, whereas with women, it might be due to each part of your cycle. It's up to you though. It just depends what you want to do and how meticulous you want to get with it. But just know that around your cycle, you will have a little bit more water retention. So don't be discouraged, and just know that it's just being a woman, and we thank you for it. And reason number 10, and probably the most biggest one, is water. So say one day that you're drinking 3-4 liters of water a day, and then the next day you only have like 1 or 2. That's like 2 kilos worth of water, or 4.4 pounds of water just right there because you drank more. You also get water from food. So you probably, if you had, we're talking purely if you know you're in a deficit. So obviously if you ate more food, you're going to be gaining more weight. But if you had actual water throughout the day, it's going to be up on the scale. So I could wake up in the morning, weigh myself, go to the toilet, and then weigh myself again, and then drink some water, and then weigh myself again. And within the space of like 5 minutes, I would have had 3 different readings on the scale. So just be mindful of that. And a bonus reason is just need to go to the toilet. It sounds simple, but it's just one of those things that we all need to go. So yeah. So now you know the reasons why your weight's going up. It's important to know most of it's just due to water or just a little bit of food still in your GI tract, or you maybe just need to go to the toilet. Okay, so how do we minimize error? First thing that you're going to do if you have a good relationship with the scale is we're going to weigh in at the same time every day, give or take 1 hour, that's fine. In the morning, after you've gone to the toilet, preferably naked or minimal clothing every single day. And what you're going to do is you're going to count those 7 days, you're going to add them all together, and then you're going to divide it by 7. And that's going to be your weekly average. All right. And then you're not going to change anything until next week. So next week, you're going to weigh in every single day in the same conditions. And then you're going to average that week as well. And then what you're going to do is you're going to compare the two averages, because there's so many weight fluctuations day to day, and you'll see that when you write it all down. But now we're getting a proper trend of your weekly averages. And that's how you decide if you're going to make changes with your weight. So you can say, all right, this weight I was 100 kilos. The next weight it was 99.1 on average. And then the next week it went back up to like 100. You know something's going wrong because that whole week from week, over 2 weeks, you're not in a deficit. Yeah. Now I'm going to go into my go-to tracking methods. A scale is certainly one of them, but only if they're averages. Another good tool is for girth measurements. Now for men, easy one, just around the navel or belly button, whatever you want to call it. Every time works a treat. You can do other measurements around your body if you want, because some people don't hold as much fat in their stomach as others. So that's fine. You can do arms, you could do legs, neck, all that kind of thing. And for women, the smallest part of your waist and then the largest part of your hips. So around your buttocks there. You can also do your leg, neck, arms, all that kind of stuff if you want. And the same deal with that, where you want to work with averages. So when you have a tape, if you're doing it yourself, make sure that you're doing it at least 3 times, and then you work out the average from there. Remember, we're trying to minimize as much error as possible. A lot of these tools are just tools. It's not going to give you like 100%, this is what it is, but it's just giving you trends over time, and then you work with those average trends over time to get a better representation of what your body's actually doing. Okay. The next tracking tool I would use is pictures or videos. So if you have a wall, preferably a white wall, I don't really have a white wall in this house, but preferably somewhere where it's in the same lighting every time. So once every 2 weeks is fine. You can do it every week if you want, but doing it every day, you probably won't see the changes as much. So you want front, side, back, or if you're just doing a video, just do a nice slow video each time. So what will happen is if you're starting to lose fat and gain a bit of muscle, the scale also might not be a good representation of your body composition, because you may be staying the same weight, but your body's changing. That's why it's better to not only do scale weight, but also to do these measurements and pictures and videos. Now, body fat testing, I preferably wouldn't suggest doing this unless you really like to see the numbers and you can fork out whatever it is to go get a dunk or a DEXA. A lot of these are incorrect and they have a margin error on them. You can do skin fold testing as well, but unless you have an actual professional that's been tested in the skin fold with an actual mechanism, I wouldn't suggest going to them. If you do want to know your body fat percentage, I probably would refrain from working out the actual percentage and just go by how many centimeters it is on each skin fold. You can look up a video on skin folds on how to do that, but I would just write down the actual measurement of what it is and just see if those measurements have gone down over time. Because remember, we're just looking at the trends. We don't really care how much body fat percentage we have, and you won't know it anyway, because it's impossible to know exactly how much body fat you have unless you're dead and they cut you up. So I wouldn't recommend that. Whatever you choose to do with the body fat testing, just keep doing that over time to see the trends as well, because it can be quite tedious. If you got any value from this video, please subscribe. It truly means the world to me. And if you have struggled with your weight for a while, you can watch this video right here of the 5 reasons why you're not losing fat. Thank you so much. Goodbye.